Hello, and welcome to Vintage Horror Movies, where we provide commentary, analysis, and critiques of older horror movies. This time we're talking about Faust from 1926. This is a silent movie directed by FW Murnau, who we talked about previously when we reviewed Nosferatu. And we'll talk about him again in the future since he did so many important films. The full title of this movie is Faust, a German Folktale. The cinematographer is Karl Hoffmann, starring Gösta Ekman, sorry if I messed that name up, as Faust, Emil Jannings as Mephisto, Camilla Horn as Gretchen, Frida Richard as Gretchen's mother, and Yvette Gilbert as Aunt Martha. One of the big influences on this movie is Johann Wolfgang van Goethe's book Faust, Part 1 from 1808 and Part 2 from 1832, as well as his play. The movie Faust has been praised for its special effects and as an example of German Expressionist filmmaking, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. There are several versions of this movie, including several by Murnau himself. There are 5 main variants. The German original is the only surviving copy of this is in the Danish Film Institute, a French version, a late German version which exists in 2 copies, a bilingual version for Europe, and a version prepared by Murnau and released in the US by MGM in July 1926. The runtime of this movie is 1 hour 55 minutes. There are several later remakes of Faust, including a 1960s French TV version, a 1994 Czech surrealist stop-motion/live-action hybrid, a 2011 Russian-German version that won the Golden Lion Award at Venice, and it includes visual nods to the 1926 movie. Also, while Murnau's Faust may be remembered as being the most ambitious, there were a number of other films based on Goethe's work or on the opera Faust that came before Murnau's, including several silent movies. Many were very short. One from Louis L'Amour in France in 1898, one from the Edison Manufacturing Company in 1900, one from Georges Méliès in France in 1903. Remember, we talked about him a couple episodes back. And other adaptations were done in Italy, Germany, and Russia. Where to find this movie? There are several versions on the Internet Archive, including English versions and one with a heavy metal score by Merciful Fate, a Danish heavy metal band. It's also on Tubi and YouTube. Restored versions are on the Criterion channel. If you like heavy metal, you might want to check out that version. That gives the movie a whole different flavor. I like heavy metal. It's just for 2 hours that kind of was a lot for me, but it was very cool to see the scenes with a completely different soundtrack. Faust is currently in the public domain in the US since it was made before 1930. That, of course, doesn't mean the restorations or the music included are in the public domain, though. Rotten Tomatoes, both critics and audiences gave it a 91%, which is definitely not bad for a movie that's 100 years old. And the plot? So the movie starts with a title card that reads, "Behold, the portals of darkness are open, and the shadows of the dead hunt the earth." Then we see the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse riding their horses amongst a smoky sky. So great start to the movie. The demon Mephisto has a bet with an archangel that he can corrupt a righteous man. If he wins, he gets dominion over the earth. That's a pretty big bet. The person they bet on is an old alchemist and scholar named Faust. Let me show you what he looks like. So he kind of looks like Moses or Leonardo da Vinci. So I think he was a well-respected person at that point. Everyone in his village is dying from the plague which Mephisto caused. Here's another great visual. So this is Mephisto, and in this scene, he's spreading out his wings, his bat-like wings. The sun is behind him, and then here's the poor villagers down here in their houses, and then you see some smoke billowing out from his wings, which is the plague. So the visuals in this movie are just top notch. Faust becomes disheartened because he wants to help the people, but nothing works. He throws all his books, including the Bible, into the fire. But one of the books opens to a certain page and says he can make a pact with the devil if he goes to the crossroads. Another great shot. Lots of fog here. There's Faust. There's the moon. So Faust conjures up Mephisto, and Mephisto says Faust can have a 24-hour trial. He can use Mephisto's powers for that time, and at the end of the 24 hours, he can decide what he wants to do. Poor Faust. Doesn't he know he should never trust the devil? Faust first tries to do good and help the people of the village, but he cannot face a cross due to his bargain with the devil, and the villagers think he's a witch and chase him around and try to stone him. Luckily, he escapes. Next, the devil tempts Faust and suggests he can make him young again, which he does here. Mephisto arranges for Faust to hook up with the Duchess of Parma, and Mephisto kills her groom. This works for a while, as Faust's goal at the time are pleasure and hedonism. He forgets about the 24-hour trial, and of course, Mephisto conveniently forgets to remind him. Faust eventually grows tired of debauchery and yearns for true love. Next, Mephisto arranges for Faust to fall in love with an innocent girl named Gretchen. And the devil leaves a gold necklace in her room, which causes her to fall in love with Faust. Meanwhile, Mephisto is busy seducing Gretchen's Aunt Martha. I'm not sure why, but I guess he's bored and needs something to do while he's waiting on Faust. Anyway, those were really fun scenes. Gretchen's brother fights with Faust. He is killed, and of course it's by Mephisto, but not before cursing Faust and his sister with his dying breath. Gretchen has a baby by Faust out of wedlock, which is a big no-no, and is condemned by the community. She wanders the streets and her baby dies of exposure during a blizzard. She is then convicted of murder and she's going to be burned at the stake. So poor Gretchen really didn't do anything wrong, except, of course, fall in love with Faust. Faust tries to intervene with Mephisto or anyone that will listen to him, and Mephisto eventually takes Faust to her. Faust runs to her and turns into an old man, but she still recognizes him as her beloved. He throws himself on the fire to try to save her, but they both die. Then their souls rise to heaven. The archangel tells Mephisto, who thinks he's won the wager, that actually he has lost because love conquers all, which Mephisto's none too happy about. Okay, on to a little trivia. The story of Faust goes back to at least the 16th century and has been told and retold many times. One of the earliest versions was Christopher Marlowe's play Dr. Faustus, and he was a famous playwright that existed before Shakespeare. And this is where the term Faustian bargain comes from. It's basically a deal with the devil, where you accept a short term gain in exchange for long term loss or moral compromise, such as having some fun now, but losing your soul for all of eternity. Note, Mephisto is not the devil with a capital D. He's a lesser demon who does the devil's bidding, and he's known as a trickster. This is Murnau's last German movie. Afterwards, he moved to the US. Due to the success of Murnau's previous film, The Last Laugh from 1924, they gave him an unlimited budget for this movie. Unfortunately, Faust was a financial flop at the box office. The studio only recovered half of their money. German critics extremely disliked the adaptation, saying it was too far from the source material, and they didn't like Gosta's performance, which I thought was pretty good myself. Since then, Faust is now regarded as one of the most important films of all time, so it just goes to show you how things change. The actor who played Gretchen's brother, Valentine, was William Dieterle, who would go on to be a director and did such movies as The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Faust was the most expensive production undertaken by UFI, which is film studio, which is a big long German word I will not try to pronounce, until it was surpassed by Metropolis the following year. Filming took 6 months at a cost of 2 million marks, which I guess is somewhere close to $7.5 million today. John Barrymore was considered for the role of Faust, but it went to the Swedish actor Gösta Ekman. The structure of this film is first horror, then comedy, then romance, and back to horror. Murnau uses the same format in his later movie, Sunrise. The UFA studio that produced this film, as well as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which we talked about last time, Nosferatu, Metropolis, and The Blue Angel, which launched Marlene Dietrich's career, was taken over by the Nazis in 1933 and used to make propaganda under Joseph Goebbels. Many of the great directors and stars fled Germany, including Fritz Lang, Marlene Dietrich, and many others. FW Murnau died in 1931, so 2 years before these events occurred. Murnau originally wanted Lillian Gish to play Gretchen, but she wanted another cinematographer. He instead went with Camilla Horn, who was a double for another actress we talked about recently, and that's Lil Dagover, who was in The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. This is Camilla Horn's debut acting role, and I think she did a really good job. Murnau used his experience as a combat pilot in World War I to come up with the exciting images of Mephisto flying Faust around the Earth. Note all the landscapes they fly over. They're, of course, miniature sets, but they are still a great visual. And also, did you notice all the crazy looking birds? A couple of those kind of look like pterodactyls. So that was fun. The speed of Faust is slightly more than normal to accommodate the special effects. The acting is also slightly exaggerated, but not as bad as in some silent movies I've seen. I did not mind it here, it was not over the top. This movie is the inspiration for Disney's Night on Bald Mountain in Fantasia from 1940. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. The failure of the original copyright holder to renew the copyright resulted in it falling into public domain. This seems like it happened a lot back then. And Faust is one of 6 canonical examples of German Expressionist cinema. The others are The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Nosferatu, Metropolis, M, also by Fritz Lang as his Metropolis, The Golem, How He Came into the World by Paul Wagner and Carl Bozzi, and Warning Shadows by Arthur Robinson. Should you watch this movie? I would say yes, definitely. For all of the reasons I've listed above, but also because the visuals of this movie will knock your socks off. Murnau's use of lighting, shadows, optical effects like multiple exposures, miniatures, and high contrast images lead to an otherworldly vibe. My favorite scenes are when the devil dwarfs Faust's town as his huge wings envelop it and a cloud of smoke billows out, which causes them all to get the plague. The confrontations between the Archangel and Mephisto are also great. And even the opening with the 4 horsemen is fun, even though that kind of looks a little bit cheap, but it's still fun. It's still a fun opening. And when Faust invokes the devil at the crossroads, another great scene, like I just showed you. And Mephisto arriving and taking off his hat to say hello to Faust and his eyes glowing white. Faust tries to get away from him and runs away, but everywhere he goes, Mephisto is already sitting there and tips his hat to him again. Obviously, Faust cannot get away from Mephisto once he has conjured him up. The main themes of this movie include good versus evil, light versus dark, temptation and redemption, and of course, the power of love. Just an FYI, this movie does drag a bit in the middle, so if you need to watch in a couple of parts, that's perfectly okay. I wasn't sure where the whole Duchess of Parma scenes were coming from. In my opinion, that could have been cut, but I think it's to show that, Faust wasn't just interested in true love. He was interested in doing other things too, besides saving the villagers. So, at a little over 2 hours, silent movies, I think, hold your attention less sometimes. So, definitely worth a look, though. I definitely would look past that. So, also, a shout out to Emil Jennings, who played Mephisto. I absolutely loved his performance, and I'm not sure Murnau wanted him to go for campy with his performance, but it was hilarious. The scenes where he's in Gretchen's room placing the necklace that will make her fall in love with Faust were great. He encounters a statue of Mary and baby Jesus, and he makes all these crazy faces and winces and has to turn away from it because, of course, he's the devil. So let me show you that scene. So that's great. Um, I just loved all the scenes that he was in because he was so over the top. Also, his courting of Aunt Martha was also great. We were talking about the length of the movie. That one could have been cut, that section, but I'm glad it wasn't because it was so much fun. So, I'd never heard of him before, but I definitely want to check out other things he's done. Now to the sign off. That's it for Faust. So please rate, review, and subscribe if you like what you're hearing. We need all the help we can get. I'd also be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments. I personally did not know a lot about the legend of Faust before doing this review, so I'm not sure if more people know about it. Maybe people in the US don't know as much, say in Germany, because since it's German folklore. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, and until next time, if you meet the devil at the crossroads and he offers you a bargain, don't take it, or you'll be sorry. So until next time, bye.